Hello, cabezas de chorlito. Territory is the first thing any bird should have in mind before even thinking about foundations for a nest. Having access to a good piece of real estate can make the difference between acquiring a partner, putting a ring on it, or not. Those who have rich food territories acquire, in average, partners a lot faster. What defines a good territory? Well, the answer goes hand in hand with the ecology of the species. In today's episode, we're going to talk about avian territory. We're going to talk about avian territoriality. In today's episode, we're going to talk about avian territoriality, real estate, and birds. Woohoo! Acquiring and holding the perfect piece of land is very expensive in terms of time, energy, and exposure to enemies. But the cost of defending it really overweights the cost. Can you get a mortgage for that? What do birds have in mind when they think about real estate? Number one, size. Raptors are resource-based territorial species. For example, in Patagonia, the black-chested buster eagle can have a total land of 40 square acres. If the territory is richer in resources, the size will decrease. On the other hand, birds of prey who live in poorer environments, they require a lot more land for hunting. Hummingbirds are a great example of avian territoriality. A male hummingbird will defend more flowers than he really needs and keeps part of his territory for the females. Is that because he wants to make a bouquet for prom? It is very common to see the owner of one flower to chase off intruders that would like to take advantage of the sweet nectar. And of course, females prefer males who own a lot of flowers. Many species of hummingbirds form leks. Say what?
A lek is a group of males that engage in competitive mating displays towards visiting females.
That sounds like Hummingbirds Got Talent. Imagine a dance club where the males are in the middle of the dance floor. The females have enough room to walk around and check them out. The best dancers are normally in the center or under the best spotlight and will respond aggressively and quickly towards any intruder. In species with leks, the territory might not have a very important resource. So instead, the females, what they really value are the genes of the males in the prime spots. What if a male cannot get a good area? Normally they drop off the competition and go for another strategy that will not imply any kind of fighting or possible injury. Number two, resources. In many cases, the male has to prove that he can provide for the family. If he is lucky enough to get to a rich resource area, he will hold his ground and not move at all. On the other hand, if you are in an area that is poor, you will not hesitate to try to overthrow one of the dominant males. Some species prefer to have a view. Flycatchers like this tropic kingbird, or tyrants like the white-crested Elenia, fire-eyed Yukon, they prefer to have high perch. They go up on a loop and they grab a bite while they're flying and then come back to the same perch. Other songbirds like this long-tailed meadowlark or this mockingbird, they like to use whatever they are as a stage. The display cost to deter competitors from entering your territory is not trivial. Songbirds can spend up to 3 times more energy when they're singing than when they're resting. On top of that, perches are normally exposed to the heat or the cold. And remember that birds lose a lot of heat when singing because the exhalation rate increases. The effort of singing for hours plus the weather conditions can increase the metabolic rate in 20%. And let us not forget about getting more exposed to predators. Puna plovers and flamingos, they like to have easy access to the salt flat waters in the Altiplanic region. Other species of shorebirds, they like to nest on the sand very close to the tide line. Oh, the other day I saw a profile of a plover on a dating site and said something like this: single plover, homeowner with an ocean view. Favorite activity to do on a date? Walk up and down, up and down, up and down, up and down the beach, holding hands while looking at the sunset. So that is why you shouldn't drive cars or motorcycles on the beach, lakes, lagoons, or rivers. That really upsets shorebirds. They might have their nests or they're trying to rest after a long journey. The neighborhood. Wow, I love this place. I love it. Maybe a couple of feathers over here, some moss over there. Oh yeah, I love it. And the price is really a bargain. She's a little too cheap. Now, what can you tell me about the neighbors? Well, having enough room prevents your neighbors from disturbing you. Imagine you're building your nest and you're decorating with moss, lichens, and flowers and feathers. And every time you fly away, one of your neighbors sneaks in and steals some of your materials. That reminds me of Homer Simpson when he takes things from Ned Flanders. There's also a major complication with the neighbors. Oh no, I'm afraid I don't know much about the neighbors. You know, I always mind my own business, but you know, just for you to know, don't say that I told you, but those over there are wrens. Wrens have a reputation of breaking into other nests and hatching the eggs of competing species. And don't even get me started about the girl across the street. She's a European starling. Females like to break into nests, fight each other to the death, and take over the nest, and of course acquire the male. Oh, and the ones next door, oh, they're very, very noisy. They party all the time. They're talking all the time. Waka, 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 waka. Gregarious birds such as penguins in Antarctica, they don't mind to be very, very close to each other. Makes sense because there's nowhere really to hide. So they find protection in numbers. Having the nest very close to your neighbor means that there are more eyes and beaks for protection against skuas. Oh my god, and the family over there, they're total parasites. Shiny cowbirds are brood parasites, which means that they lay their eggs on somebody else's nest. Their presence on a site really brings the price of real estate down. There was an experiment where scientists used some playback with the calls of the shiny cowbirds in an area populated by possible host species. It turns out that the couples decided to move out to areas where there were no signs of cowbirds. And in all the areas where there's playback, the population decreased. What if a male cannot get a good spot? Well, they stop trying for a season, or 2 or 3. These dropouts might be smaller, weaker, more tired, too young, too old, and they have very little to gain from facing the dominant males. They're better off just saving energy and waiting until the conditions improve. They are known as floaters, which are individuals that do not hold a territory, but they move about from one area to the other. It's like when you are in your 20s and you go backpacking. Because floaters move so much, they also have the opportunity of learning about the different areas that at some point they might want to acquire. What if the owner goes away? Experiments with oyster catchers have shown that if the dominant male is removed, any of the floaters in the area will take over, especially if he's been in the area before. As you can see, there are many places where birds would like to settle down. There are many important areas that are being threatened by construction, buildings, highways. Acquiring a good piece of land is essential to the males, especially at the beginning of the season. And because of all this competition and extra pressure, is that we don't recommend you to use playback. That forces the male to concentrate on something else other than what he really needs to do. Thanks for watching this episode of Cabeza de Chorlito. Leave some comments below and let me know what topics you would like me to cover on a future video. And remember our motto: birdwatching for learning, learning for sharing, and sharing for caring. Territoriality. In this episode, we're going to talk about avian territoriality. In this episode, we're going to talk about fatality. Sounds like a fatality.